The first body part that we're going to take a deeper look into is going to be the ear. So the ear always looks pretty daunting to draw. There's a lot of stuff there, especially compared to something more simple like a nose. So even though the ear might look a little bit scary to draw, there's actually a lot of things here that we can again break down into different steps and simplify quite a bit, so that drawing it will hopefully seem much easier. What I have right here is I have different ovals, and this is going to be the kind of like the canvas that we'll be drawing the ears on. So those are just some simple different angles for the head. So as you can see here, this is as if the head is facing us, but also looking down. So it's as if this head would look down here, so the eyes would be right about there. So this is going to be a pretty intense angle to draw the ear. Next, this one here is very similar to this version right there. So this is going to be a head kind of slightly looking up from the side, and we'll have a head looking sideways, so looking to the right, looking to the left, and we'll have the ear come kind of flat on the surface there, so without much perspective. So this should give us a pretty good range of variations. So looking at this, the first thing, as usual, that we'll want to do is try to simplify it into a really simple volume so that we can easily draw it on the surface, in perspective. So we are going to take this and simplify it into just a box in perspective. Very simple to draw again, very simple to attach to a line here. So I'm going to be doing the example with this one here, the box. Of course, an ear is more complex than this, but just to position it on the surface of the head, we'll want to use this first. So what is this going to look like from the top view? So this is also kind of important. So let's say we have the top view, the top of the head right here, and we know that the head gets narrower towards the front of the head, where the forehead is. We have the nose kind of right here, and the ears don't lay flat on the side of the head like this. They actually are tilted forward just a bit so that we can hear the sounds that are coming in front of us more easily. So it's actually going to be like this. So we'll have kind of our rectangles placed like this and attached at this point right here at this corner. All right, so since we are using a square, a very simple shape, we're just going to use the entire width of this thing. So we're going to draw the square like this. So if I were to draw a square that would be laying flat on the surface, I would draw it like this, following the lines right here, parallel to the direction of the head. But it's not laying flat. Instead, it's going to be tilted forward just a little bit. So I'm not going to be following that line quite perfectly. Instead, it's going to be a little bit more like that. You don't want to go too much like this. It's not going to be a 90-degree angle. Otherwise, the ear will look like it's like this, and it'll look kind of weird. So just a little bit, just not parallel, but close. So maybe the one I drew is a little bit too intense even. I'm going to go back and do something like that. All right, so almost the same. And then we can close that box. Actually, I'm going to give it a little bit of thickness here in the front. So we're going to have a very simple box like this to represent the ear. Now, from the side view, it's going to look very simple. So for as far back as it goes, I'm going to go right about like the halfway point here of this circle right here. So it's going to go something like this. And then, of course, we'll kind of sculpt the ear within this square. But for now, just use the entire space. And consider that the back of the ear will reach about the halfway point right there. And we'll do the same thing here. We'll have the initial line here where the ear is connected. Draw the little box, give it a little bit of thickness. And of course, we're not going to go parallel to the line. We're going to divert a little bit. So something like that. Parallel lines all the way down, parallel lines again like this to close the box. All right, so now we have the ear kind of placed in the correct position on the side of the head. So next up is going to be, well, shaving off parts of this box so that we get a shape that is a little bit closer to a real ear. So the way to do this is initially we're going to do it from the side view because it's a little bit more obvious. But what we want to do is kind of trace a half a heart. So we're going to start below this line here. So the ear will start right about here. So maybe like a third of the way, right? So right about there, a third of the way, third of the way. So we'll start like this, and then we'll go all the way up from the side view. We're going to touch and then back and kind of create a half a heart shape like this. And then you can go back up a little bit at the bottom here at the lobe of the ear. And then once we have that, we can actually, well, get rid of the rest. So we don't need the rest of the box now. The rest of the box is only to position it in space properly. So now we have this ear right there. It's in a good-ish shape. There's so many shapes for ears that you can almost draw anything. It'll probably represent an existing ear somewhere. So as long as it's around something like that, you should be good to go. And now from here, what we're going to do is, you can almost imagine like this is kind of like the start of a 9. If you close it like this, you have kind of like this 9 shape. What we're going to do is we're going to draw another 9, but inside of this shape. So we want to draw kind of like the initial circle for the 9, pretty close to the outside walls of the ear. So pretty close to the helix of the ear. And then we're going to create a nice circle like this, and then close the 9, and of course if you're drawing the ear from the other side, it won't be a 9, of course. It'll be more like a weird P or something, but you get the idea. And then once as we go down here, we're going to get closer and closer to the inside. So we want this distance here to get wider and wider, right? And then we're going to stop right about here. So we get a nice 9 like this. So this is going to be the start of any ear. So this is what you should do first. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other one as well. So we'll have the arch shape. So the tip of the ear is going to touch right about the center mark of this box right there. So we're going to go like this, touch, and then touch the back, and then bring it back down just like that. All right. Then we'll do the same thing here, start here. And of course, as the oval here is getting tighter and tighter, so will our curves. So in this case here, we have a nice perfect circle in the center of the ear. Of course, the circle in here is not going to be like this. It'll be much tighter to represent the same perspective as the oval that it's in. Same here. So we'll have a tighter circle. It's not going to be as perfectly round as the first one that we drew. So something like this. And then as we go down, it gets wider and wider here until we reach about this point right there. All right. And now we're going to do the same thing here. Go up, touch the other side, down. And there we go. And now we're going to trace the 9 in the center here. And down, and there we go. So now let's get rid of the box around these other ones. No longer needed. But what we're left with is a little bit of thickness here, as you can see. So this is good. So we're going to erase the other lines. All the straight lines we can get rid of at this point, because there's no straight line when drawing an ear. So now we're left with this shape right there. So we're going to close everything up. So I'm going to remove the lines here too. And now all we have to do is join those two lines here in like a nice curve. So like a nice C, and touch the inside right there to join kind of the lower part of the helix right here. And we're going to do the same thing here. And of course, you can look at this curve right there. This curve matches this circle here. When the oval becomes tighter and tighter, so does the curve. So it's not going to be as round. and it's going to be even less round for this one here. And now we are going to close off the top part of the ear. So the way to do this is we just continue this line here, so the outside wall of the ear. We're just going to continue it, wrap up inside, and kind of just close right about here, right in the center of the circle. So close like this, and then the same thing here, like this, and close. And then same thing here, like this, and close right about there. So from the top view, so the shape really is that you can see kind of like the top of the ear like this, and then it's as if it wraps up behind like that. Goes just like that. And this thickness right here, this is the initial thickness of the box that we drew. So it's important that we maintain that thickness here on, at the top of the ear like this. All right, so now we have kind of like this weird shape like this. And that's good. So we're on the way. So we're gonna remove kind of like the circle that we drew. We don't need that anymore. So all we're gonna be left with is this nice spiral. So nice flowing spiral, and we are almost done at this point. So a couple things left. We want to close that shape. So right now it's an open shape. We want to close this off. So the way to do this is we're going to continue that line here, and every time we continue a line, it always flows nicely from one another. So it doesn't go like this. It has to follow the line and then slowly diverge. So that's what we're going to do here. Follow the line, and then we're going to create a little bit of a bump. This is going to be the tragus, like this. Tragus right here, a little bump, and then back in to close and touch the lobe of the earlobe. So you kind of get this shape here. So like an inverted S from this side, like this, bump, back to the earlobe, like this, bump, back to the earlobe. And then from the front view here, the tragus might be sticking out a little bit, actually. So from the side, we're not going to notice, but from the front view, this part here is actually sticking out a little bit from the side of the head. So it'll create a more visible bump this way. All right, so now we're almost done. There's only one more part to add to this whole thing. It's going to be the anti-helix. And the anti-helix looks very similar to a Y. So, on the outside, it looks very similar to this. So this is what we need to add inside of the ear right now. So I'm going to draw it with a line, but this is actually something that sticks out from the ear. But the shape of it, what you want to do is you want to start here from the side, the lower portion of the ear, and go back up and then curve in a very similar way of as this shape right here, this nice curve, this nice 9. So we'll do the same thing here. Go up and curve until it meets kind of like the inside of the ear right there. And then we're gonna start from the same spot, keep going, but instead it'll curve a little bit higher and touch kind of like the top of the ear instead. So we have kind of like this weird Y in the ear. So we're gonna do the same thing here. Starts from the lobe of the ear, goes up, curves, goes up, touches the top now. So these shapes, this Y, this shape right here, it's actually going to stick out quite a bit. So if we look at it from the side view here, that Y would be like this, and then it would connect back here. As you can see here, it's not a flat Y, it sticks out, it has a curve to it. So from this view here, we'll have the Y, the top part of the Y like this, curve down, then curve up again and back in. But to draw this properly, we'll have to have it stick out here. So it'll be more like this instead, more like this version. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna replace those black lines with white instead. So you can see here, it's still the same Y, but instead of just drawing it with lines, I drew kind of like the outside of the Y. So this is what it looks like now. And then the helix that we have here kind of blends in with the Y, and they become just one line. And then that line fades as it gets closer to the earlobe. So as you can see here, those two are like merged right there. So we're gonna erase that and have them just fade like this instead. Same here, but right now it's behind, so we're not really able to see it properly. And there you have it. So this is how you draw an ear. So I'm gonna clean this up a little bit. It's a little bit easier when you actually paint it. So I'm going to try to represent that with a little bit of shading. So all of this here, and by the way, the whole of the here is kind of like behind this, behind the tragus right here, like at the top right there. So we're not going to see it from the front here. Might be able to see it a little bit from the side view, but it would be right about there. So I'm going to try to finish this off with a little bit of shading so it looks a little bit nicer. And you know, this is a pretty generic ear. Of course, like I said, there's ears of many kinds, so we can definitely go in here and kind of like change the anatomy a little bit. So maybe make the lobule a little bit bigger, like that. You can also definitely change the outside of the ear, so the shape, instead of being a perfect 9, it can be a 9 that's a little bit deformed. So maybe like this, you know, a little bit pointy instead, like that. That works too. As long as the main components are still there, as long as all the main shapes still remain, you can pretty much do anything you want. There's ears of so many different kinds that, so you know, that would work too. And now I'm going to, so this part here, the anti-helix this underneath the helix, which is the outside portion of the ear, the top portion here. This is the helix. This here is the anti-helix, the little Y. So the helix is kind of like a hood covering the anti-helix. Then you have this part here kind of just fade in. There we go. So that would be kind of like a basic shading for the ear. And this is kind of how you draw an ear. So from the side, pretty simple. I'm going to add the same shading here. So this entire region here is a little bit darker. And now I'm going to use the anti-helix to brighten things up. So instead of being dark lines right here, I'm going to paint it or draw it with a white line instead on a dark background, so that it looks like it's actually sticking out like it should be, just like that. Right, so that looks a little bit better already. Can make things a little bit darker up here. And there we go. We have another ear, and then the top, the other one here at a more critical angle. I'm gonna do the same thing, add a little bit of shading here in the cavities, and then use the anti-helix to bring that shape back with white. And then once you know kind of this anatomy, it's cool because you can deform it in many different ways. So if you want to have like pointy ears, you can definitely do that. You just have to stretch things out a little bit. So make the anti-helix take a little bit more space. So maybe it goes higher like this, and have the helix just cover it properly. You know, it would still kind of work. And we still have the nice Y shape that we need for the anti-helix, like this. And we have the helix on top covering it. So no problem, it still works. But now it's a pointy ear. And then finally, if we want to attach this to the head properly, maybe you'll want to kind of smooth out that line right here where it connects to the side of the head, so that it's not as intense. So maybe something like that instead. This is how you draw the ear in perspective. A couple things again that are important to remember. The ear is oriented like this. So it's like it's facing us at all times, unless you're watching someone from behind. And by the way, if we are going to draw something from behind, an ear from behind, you have kind of like a simple cylinder to attach it to. So this is what attaches to the head, and then it flares out like this to become a bigger cylinder, and then the ear attaches itself onto that, and it's going to be kind of a like a big S. So something like this. S, S, and then goes back in, or more like a really stretched out 8. So right here, this is going to be lobule. And then we have the helix on top right here. So we're going to give it a little bit of thickness. And we are going to see also the anti-helix a little bit maybe. So it would kind of be this shape. You know, it's still a pretty simple shape, kind of just like this big S, like this. And then you just need to give it a little bit of thickness, like this, or like that. And then you attach it to the side of the head, and you're good to go. It's almost also like a hat. So, you know, fashionable hat. There we go. Now, to recap all the steps that are required. First, you draw your circle, not your circle. First, you draw your rectangle if you want to. And then within that rectangle, what you're going to draw is half a heart. So you start with this. Make sure that the connection line here is straight and that you have something that looks kind of like a heart. So if you close it, you know, it looks like that, or maybe like a peach. And inside of this heart, you're going to draw a 9. So you start with the big circle first for the 9. Make sure that you're really, really close to the outside wall of the ear. And then you bring down that 9 here, and then make sure that the distance here between those two lines get thicker and thicker as you finish the 9 right about in the center of the ear right there. After you have the 9 drawn, you can erase the straight line that you initially used to attach the ear onto the head, and you can continue that line right here until right about the center of the ear, and then you can close it. And then you can do the same thing at the bottom here, close those two lines. So what you are left with is like this this nice 9 looking spiral. And of course, all those lines have to flow nicely. So you don't want anything to break. You want nice flowing curves. So it takes a little bit of dexterity again, because it's, you know, curves are hard. But yeah, practice this, make sure that it looks nice and it flows nicely. And then from there, what we're gonna do is we're gonna create another kind of like a inverted S, really subtly. So like this, inverted S, this shape here. So this is going to give us the tragus, right? The tragus, excuse me, like right here. Right behind the tragus, we have the hole for the ear, which is going to be the external auditory meatus. That's how it's called. This is where the sound goes into. Next up, we are going to add the antihelix, which is a Y shape that stems from the base of the ear. And once you have this, once the shape is closed, now what you can do is add a little bit of shading in here. So make everything darker inside of the shape, inside of the closed shape. And now we'll be able to draw the antihelix pretty easily. So you can go back to a white brush, or you can just erase if you're drawing on the pen with a pencil, and we can start the Y from the base here. So we start the Y, curve in almost to draw another 9. Then the other one will start from the same base, and then instead we'll go and touch the top of the ear instead. So now we can add a little bit of blending, and we can extend that line right here a little bit lower so that it goes almost all the way down. And we can soften those lines like this, and we have a ear. So this is the process of drawing an ear, and then from there, like I said, you can deform it in any way you want. But those are the steps. As you can see, once you do it a couple times, it's actually fairly simple. So there's not that many steps. Drawing an ear properly is very, very important. It's one of those things that most beginners, it's a mistake that most beginners will make, and that is kind of neglecting the ear and not drawing them properly. But it's one of those things that are really, really easy to spot when an ear looks wrong. You might have a hard time drawing it from memory, but you will always know when you're looking at an ear if it's right or not, because it's something that you see every day. Everybody's got them. Everybody has them on display. So whenever it's slightly wrong, then you'll be able to pick up on it. So don't neglect drawing your ears. So this is going to conclude this chapter on the anatomy of the ear and how to draw an ear. And we are going to move on to drawing the nose and the eyebrows.